We came up with this sort of cheesy tagline, something we really believe in, though. We want to see the whole church whole again.
So, welcome to the Whole Church Podcast. I'm your host, Joshua. We do have our occasional co-host, the mysterious one, here again, TJ. Wow. And today we have a special guest, Ryan Green. I don't know why. I wanted to say Say. I was like, I know this isn't Ryan Say. I've seen Ryan Say a million times.
Not Ryan Say.
Yeah. Pastor Ryan Green, he was one of my close mentors while I was in Charleston, and I just can't remember names. I need something to blame that on. What do I blame that on?
ADHD.
That's too easy. TJ fed me sugar today.
Severe ADHD.
I think that's just placing right there. Placing the blame, yeah.
There we go.
That's not very whole church of you.
Oh, man. So, for intro, we just like to do some like really hard-hitting question to start off with. Like, what is your favorite cartoon animal? Mine would be Perry the Platypus. Tiberius?
I didn't expect to be under fire for this. Do Pokemon count?
Yes.
Doug Trio.
Only the animal like Pokemon. Like, if you would have said Mr. Mime, I wouldn't count it.
Okay.
Doug Trio's fine.
That's fair.
So, favorite cartoon animal. I guess just off the top of my head, I remember making a Scooby-Doo out of clay in art in about 8th grade, so maybe Scooby-Doo.
That's a good one. I didn't even think about Scooby-Doo.
One year for Halloween, me and my little brother dressed up as Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo, except I was Scrappy-Doo and he was Scooby. I was at least twice his size. I just thought it was funny.
Just going for the irony there.
Oh, it's good stuff. So, we like to kind of establish why people should care about what we're going to talk about. Are you still the children director for the state of South Carolina and Church of God of Prophecy?
Yes.
And also assistant pastor at, what's the name of the church?
The associate pastor at East Clemson Christian Fellowship.
Now I'm just curious. What's the difference between assistant and associate? Is it the same thing?
I have no idea. I don't know very many assistant pastors.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard that term before. Once you said associate, and I was like,
by definition, an assistant is just assisting the pastor. Associate is a whole other pastor, just associated with the main pastor. Right?
Well, it depends. It's all just depend on the specific church. I've seen churches that had 5 associate pastors.
Wow. And
they had them an associate pastor to youth, an associate pastor to children's ministry, associate pastor to worship, and that's how they were calling him. Was they said, look, he's the lead pastor. These others, they all serve on the same plane, the same field as ministry specific. And so it just depends on where you're at. For me, that means that I oversee media, technology, communications, children's ministry, and anything else that comes up.
So you're in charge of what the church sees.
Oh, goodness.
In basic terms.
The marketing pastor? Director of marketing, associate pastor.
I do handle the website. I don't do all the social media. Our lead pastor was already had that started, and so he added me so I can just plug some stuff in from time to time. But
y'all are near a big college too. So y'all have like a big college ministry. Is that right?
We are near a big college. Yes, Clemson University.
2019
national champions football.
So not a real college, just the bad guys.
Right, just the one that wins football games. Yeah.
Oh man. So that's tough. So that's cool. Does that change the church experience being that close to it? Would you say?
It does to some extent. We are a traditional church, but at the same time, we have a passion and a heart for college age ministry. So we do things to connect with the college as far as like Welcome Back Clemson, where they have a big event downtown, and we'll have a booth there, get set up, connect, hand out a bunch of free stuff to college kids. Our lead pastor, Chucky Chandler, he does a young adult Bible study on Tuesday nights, and so he's connecting with them, bringing them in, and doing things that we can to help connect with them. And so while we're a traditional church, we still reach out and connect with young people, and sometimes it's a little different because, there's different styles, but what it all comes down to is relationship. So they see that and they like, hey, this is kind of cool.
I think it sort of touches the surface on one of the main reasons we wanted to have you on the podcast is your unofficial title of, was like South Carolina Co-op Tech Guru. We have we are really
smart guy.
traditional. So I know a lot of our churches kind of are challenged in that area. Yeah, old fashioned is a much nicer way of putting it.
Traditional, I think, is maybe a little bit more a nicer way of putting it, but yeah. And so I found out that I do. Yes, I'm in charge of some stuff. I don't know the exact. I probably should know my title, but it's something to do with media. But yeah, I do manage the website and social media. By the way, I do not keep up with social media anywhere near shape or form that I should. It's just I understand technology, and we knew we wanted to do something with it. So occasionally I'll post and share something, but it's not regular. It's not what I would encourage or promote and say, hey, do it just like this.
Isn't it?
Not an example.
Don't be like me.
I don't have the number off the top of my head, but isn't it something like 80% of our pastors are over the age of 50 or something like that?
I would have to look and see. We do have a large number of our pastors are over the age of 50. Definitely. We see that in our churches in South Carolina and even across the U.S.
So I shouldn't say we. Have you seen, is there any kind of like struggle with, because we do have so much older leadership and a lot of traditional values, is it a struggle to stay unified to the younger generation of church coming in now?
I would say that we do see that, but it's getting better. I mean, if you'd asked me 3 to 5 years ago, I'd say, oh yeah, well, we definitely have a struggle. But we're starting to recognize and realize that first off, they're not here to take our jobs. They're not here to push us out of the way.
No one knows stuff about pastor jobs is trying to take a pastor job.
Exactly. But no, we're starting to see that, hey, wait a minute. They're different, but they love God just as much, and learning to work together, working to cooperate. And that's what I love about our local churches. We are literally that. We are a young church and an old church, and we're missing a little bit of I'd say we have definitely more seniors than we do young families. We have more college kids, or as many college kids as we do young families.
So it's like in between.
So we see this gap that there is. We do have some young families, but just it's probably our lesser area, and so there's kind of this gap. And so young people, they tend to be more tech savvy. But then at the same time, we were able to integrate mobile giving and digital giving, where some I just slammed that door. But as some, kind of like, what? You got to pay fees. What's all this? Real quickly in the first year, they looked at the numbers and they said, "Yeah, mobile giving is good. We like it." That's
how that works.
It's like, yeah, we told them, hey, they don't carry cash, but they carry their phone. They can pay on their phone. They said, yeah. Once they found out it worked, they liked it. And that's one of the things is we have a church that's open and interested. And when pastors see something, especially, congregations that are more traditional and are older, when they see lives transformed and changed, they become a lot more open to this.
Right. Proof's in the pudding.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, like, you can say this is good, but until you show me, how do I know? I have this experience doing this. Show me the proof that this is actually viable and working. And we're starting to see some try something different.
What's something my dad said, not about church, just his job. Someone tells me to do something a certain way because I'm clever, but I'm also kind of smart aleck. Is that the nice way to put that?
Yep.
Yeah, I'll go with that. Especially growing up, I was like that. So he would explain. He was like, yeah, at work, when I have an issue like what you face all the time, son. He told me he would do exactly what the boss said to do, but then also do his way, and then show the boss both ways. He's like, just so you know, I also did this. If you want to compare. You just obey people, but you can also do stuff and maybe they'll listen.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that's one of those things that, man, you can do so much in building relationships. Just in having that trust and having that where they see that, hey, wait a minute, like this is someone I'm close to. This is someone that I've seen prove themselves over time. If they're saying this, you know what? Let's give it a shot.
Yeah. I trust this person. In what they're doing for the church is a good thing for the church. It's like it's really nice to see that gap start to close that way through those relationships that people are forming, with the younger people, with the older people, with the pastor. And it just doesn't happen often enough.
Well, I think because you're not going to toot your own horn, so I'm just going to... I think a large part of it is there's not enough people who are willing to do that. When young people are saying, I think if we did this, it's good, and the older pastor's done this all the way, I think he's more likely to kind of, I don't want to say ignore, but not pay as much heed to a young person in the church as much as a pastor who's saying, hey, I've done this is what it looks like, and showing him. Is what Pastor Ryan does a lot of.
Well, and looking at one aspect of it, okay, I don't believe you have to dress a certain way at church. But you know what I found?
Beach clothing is great.
It is when I'm heading to the beach. But if I want to be able to talk to somebody and connect with someone that's older, I need to relate to them. And so when I go to different churches, I try to find out the congregation. What's their culture like in their church? And then match their culture. Almost even a missionary to that area of, okay, I want to go ahead. If they wear suits and ties, I'm going to wear something pretty close to it. Maybe a sport coat with possibly a tie.
Sport coat, pocket square, unbuttoned top.
Yeah, there we go.
But no, I'm going to come in and I'm going to do my part to come to some kind of happy medium to say, hey, I'm going to try. And when people try, it's noticeable. I mean, and so I see that. And even with technology, one thing that I found, kind of getting back to that, of bridging that gap, is I find people that are older and more traditional, that are open, connect with them, and then they'll begin to be your advocate on that other side.
It's all just relationships, really.
It is. I mean, like we have a text group in our church with there's somebody that's in their late 70s that's on the text group. They can text. Now, didn't do it. Not everybody's going to do it, but in this group, we connect with them, and when it goes out to leadership, they get it and they respond. And they found that, hey, wait a minute, this is a quick, viable way to have a conversation with 5-6 people, and we can all just kind of do that at our own time and not having to schedule a meeting. And hey,
nice.
Who doesn't like avoiding meetings? Yeah.
Once you get the convenience across, a lot of people are way more willing to, because
that's why the texting took off.
Right.
So convenient.
It's just so much more convenient than, hey, when are you free? Can we meet at the church here on Wednesday after service? No, I've got to go. Just being able to text like 12 people at once is insanely convenient.
Well, we got the software to record Skype calls because it's just easier to do a Skype call than try to meet in person sometimes.
We're seeing that from our international office with webinars and Facebook Live. I don't know if you noticed, but through Kogop website and Facebook page, they're doing one Facebook Live a week, pretty much. That's their goal.
Better on their socials.
You're seeing, their goal is to do one Facebook Live a week, connecting with a different area of ministry and leadership development, and doing that. And then we do our webinars for children's ministry training, about 6 of those a year.
Wow.
Yeah, and so they try to do one a month, about half the time. And so getting those, we got one coming up at the end of this month, April. Or whenever. Yeah. But yeah, so we have those coming up, and it's been a way to be able to reach out and do training to 600 people.
Yeah, without having to see any of them.
Right, without it. And putting it to where they can watch it on their time, because then they're then posted live or as a on demand through live stream, or you can go back to the post on Facebook, watch it there, and just communicate those ways. It's reaching more people. So,
just because this is fun for me, I like to try and challenge people. Let me paint a train wreck for you. I want to just build a scenario. Say someone just gets saved.
Okay.
Their family's lost, they're lost. They know nothing about Jesus, the church, or anything. They just get saved, on fire for God. They're reading through the Bible, and they see Jesus loves children. Like Jesus has a special heart for children. They're seeing all this stuff, so they want to get involved. They go to a local church, and let's just say it's a very traditional church. A lot of people don't like children's church because, maybe they feel like it's not real church and they're just trying to babysit the kids, not really doing anything. So they're almost neglecting the children at the church. They see it's mostly either older generations or really young people, and it's very outdated, and they just feel like the church isn't even trying to get to them. But they want to be a part. They want to do something with kids. They want to do connections. Where do they start in this mess to try and get the church to be where it needs to be? Or can they even? Because they just came in. Can they do anything? Do they have a say?
And that is challenging. That is hard because it does come down to the vision of leadership of the church, the senior pastor, the lead pastor. And so the key thing that they would have to
the institution.
No, there's good things working, and you work with what you got. But it starts with having conversations, and that's one thing. We try so many different ways to blast people, this and that, about how to fix stuff. But man, a meal, cup of coffee. You start building on these things. You start talking to people. The more you talk to people, the more open we get to be with each other. The more I know someone, the more I spend time with someone, the more I'm going to listen to them. And I'm not saying, you butter them up, but I mean, seriously, that works for me, by the way. So anybody in the Clemson area wants to look me up, I like coffee, I like food. Come see me. But no, seriously, it's through those, but you start to see those relationships. And then the thing that they can do is begin to look at, okay, so what's out there? And where are they getting their information too? They want to do something with the kids. If they're a new Christian, what's their background? How do they know what is good? So the thing they want to do is connect with a leader and possibly even connect that pastor with a state children's director or regional children's director, that kind of thing. But because I'm always more than willing to talk to people and connect with people about that. And so there's lots of opportunities to be able to do it. And we even talk at times about leading up, about setting an example and doing those types of things where you can, through a relationship, and once again, comes back to that, begin to encourage and promote and kind of present things.
So focus a lot less on the negatives and a lot more on the relationships?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
What I've noticed is when it comes to matters that people want to fix, they go back to competition, or their first go-to is competition instead of cooperation. And when you get that competitive spirit, it's good for a lot of things. Fixing issues within the church is not one of those things. You can't be directly competing with the head pastor.
It's not about you, and it's not about the pastor, right?
Right.
It's about Jesus. And if you're competing with Jesus, you've got a whole other set of problems.
You already lost. You lost.
Supposedly, you and the head pastor are just serving the same master, right?
Exactly. We're on the same team. And that even gets into youth ministries and other ministries. I guess it was about 10 years ago, went to a conference and they began talking about silo ministry. And now you'll hear lots of things about silo ministry, about how we want to, instead of building up this one ministry here, building up a youth ministry and building up a seniors ministry and a couples ministry, but getting a picture that unifies and brings them all together and still having specialized, but make sure they're all on the same page. I talked to a guy just yesterday, and he said that's what they were doing at their church. Through the last year, they've been evaluating how they each had different business cards that didn't look anything alike. They each had logos that didn't look anything alike. And they started realizing, and it wasn't because anybody was out to do their own thing, but they realized they weren't intentional about bringing everybody together, sharing the same vision, and then having that platform to be able to communicate those things where, okay, this is what we want this to look like. And it's because then, man, I've done this before where you're competing to get the same volunteers, you're competing for this, you're competing for that. But no, we're all on the same team. And so when we come together, work together, we can look and see how can we do these things together to accomplish the bigger picture.
Reminds me of one of my go-to Bible stories that I probably say too many times, and I think I've said it on the podcast before, but I'll just keep saying it. Where Paul and Peter were not really sure about one another, and Paul was kind of getting heavy pressure from the Jerusalem church, and his response, instead of, oh, hey, I could get arrested here, and all this different stuff that he knew was a problem, and staying away from Jerusalem, which I think is what human common sense would tell you to do. Like, hey, I'm just going to not go there. His response was, no, unity is so important. I'm willing to risk everything. Goes there, submits to the authorities at the Jerusalem church, even though they're in completely two different ministries. He's reaching the Gentiles. They're talking to the Jews. Listen, we're in completely two different ministries, but I'm going to submit to you. And they're like, okay, cool. Could you do this ritual where you shave your head bald and sprinkle some blood on you? And he's like, yeah, man, yeah. Because unity's just that important.
It took you this long to ask? I mean,
I would have just done that for fun. No, but like in all seriousness, like it was so important to him. And now we turn around today and it's, oh, well, I don't know if I can help there. That's the children's ministry. I'm focused on, really, you're in the same city, I mean, come on, guys.
Yeah, and that gets back to that being willing to submit, yield, and to work towards something instead of saying, I have the right, I deserve this, and saying, you know what, I give up my rights. And that's one of the things when we do come to Christ, we actually give up our rights. Sometimes we forget that, and sometimes we feel that we still deserve or have earned something. But as soon as we become Christ, we're His. And everything we have. No longer ourselves, we're His, and whatever He has, that's what we're faithful to do and follow.
No longer I, but Christ in me.
That's right. I think that's somewhere in the Bible. Yeah, something like that.
Man. So, man, I lost my track of thought with that.
Okay, so we'll just leave the list. If you were trying to come up with a decision, like one thing that you think could unify the church more, what would you say would be our best course of action? I think that's it.
Give us a 5-point plan.
Man, I'll tell you, it always comes down to prayer. We were talking earlier, and it's like prayer. Yep, prayer. How you gonna fix this? Prayer. What are you gonna do about this? Pray. Truly and honestly,
fast hard drugs.
No. Do that anyway. No, I mean, honestly, once fasting, though, really does. Biblical fasting. When we're giving up and sacrificing and presenting ourselves to God and trusting in Him, these other things start to fall away or become aware. We're more aware of, hey, wait a minute. That's maybe not an attitude I should have, or why am I drawn to this? And we start to see how the flesh moves us and pushes us, and we're allowed to kind of push that away. And when we do those things, that starts to bring us closer together. I've always said there's two groups of people that you'll grow close to. People you pray for and people you pray with. You cannot avoid it if you're going to be truly praying for somebody. And if you're praying with somebody, you are going to be drawn closer to them. It's just going to happen.
Too much with them.
Yep.
So my ADHD subsided long enough for me to remember what I was going to say earlier. I've worked at a few different grocery stores for probably 5 years. I was in the grocery store business. And one thing I noticed there, departments are really good at working together. If you're in deli, you know you're going to be working with the dairy department to get ham next to cheese because it sells better that way. And, you think about it, and it's so easy at a grocery store to work within the departments and how to do that. But then sometimes, that's what we're talking about with the church, is I feel like we lack that. I mean, I think this is just me spitballing random ideas. But, you see, and some churches do this where, like, the kids serve the senior ministry. And they kind of work together that way and complement one another instead of compete with one another. Which I think that's sort of what you're going with the whole relationships thing anyway, right?
Right. Yeah, and I see this partnering with youth ministries. For, these kids, they move from children's ministry into youth ministry, and whatever your time frame is before you have them involved in children's ministry. But partnering with the youth pastor to set up a program and to set up this training and discipleship thing where you guys can work together on integrating them into using them there, integrating them into the main sanctuary, finding out how you can do these things together to serve. And then once you have that, and I'll tell you, setting up consistent plans, processes, and expectations, that builds up to it, that you have this consistency from ministry to ministry that, well, we expect this over here, but you only have to do this in this ministry. But if you have a consistency, now I'm not saying you should have the same requirements of someone who is, they're a parking attendant as you do your lead teacher for
Right.
the adult Bible study.
I mean, if your parking attendant isn't ordained, then
What kind of parking attendant is this?
doesn't count.
No, but I mean,
Is your parking even less?
Yeah, is that your spot?
but I mean, finding the right maturity and levels for each area. But as far as you're growing, if you're a teacher in children and you're a teacher in youth and you're a teacher in the adult Bible study, probably having similar expectations for them of commitment, spiritual maturity, and those types of things.
Yes. So, I see what you're saying in the local church. The Whole Church podcast, we talk about the whole church. Can you see this in a larger scale, like it working this way, where maybe the Baptists work with the Pentecostals, who work with the Catholics? Do you think it's possible to see that kind of relationships, or are we forever divided?
I think some areas we see that coming together. I know in Charleston they had a CEC organization. I don't remember exactly what that means, but I just remember the initials. Charleston Ecclesiastical something. But they would come together, and it was all different denominations, but we would have prayer breakfasts, meetings, do that with pastors from the whole Charleston area. And we were up in Somerville coming down and just meeting and coming together. I see this in some towns where we'll work together for different projects. National Day of Prayer, we did that last year in Central. There was a pastor there of a Wesleyan church, and he was just going around knocking on doors. Hey, would you like to help out with this? Sure. What do you need us to do?
Awesome.
I mean, I can't remember what our participation was, but I remember telling him, hey, at the very least, I'm going to be there and support you. Now, how many people are going to join in and commit to that? I don't know, but knocking on the door got that conversation started.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Spare prayer? Bible times. That's how they did it, right?
Yeah, and so, I do see this happening, partnering together and coming together, as long as we realize that we're not more important than the other person.
Yeah, humbleness is another thing we talked about.
Humility,
right before we turn this on.
Man, so with that, as we build those relationships, as we collaborate and kind of make intentional plans, knocking on doors, like what we were just talking about, what can we see? What do you think we'll see from that? More as that happens more and more, what difference will we see?
I think people outside the church will begin to look and recognize that.
Well, you mean will we recognize from our love for one another?
I think that's actually how we're identified as disciples of Christ.
That's
is our love for one another. Yep, not wearing a Christian T-shirt or listening to Christian music, but love for one another. And so, but no, they'll begin to notice that and identify that. Let's see, who was
that?
that?
If they listen to Christian podcasts, that works.
Almost, but I can't remember who it was that wrote a book, Unchristian. But he wrote that book and talks about how unchristian a lot of Christians act, how we don't treat people. But as we start to come together and work together and do outreach projects, they'll see, hey, wait a minute. There's something different going on here. Let me find out more about this. Let's see what's happening.
Those guys, there's something. They're doing something.
They'll do that.
And that's exactly it. Anytime they see something different than what they would normally expect.
So working in-house
it'll draw their
will
attention.
Eventually lead to better outreach.
Oh, yeah. Especially as we work together with other churches and organizations and denominations in outreach projects. You can do it in community worship services. We did that in Somerville. Had a community, I think it was a Thanksgiving service for a few years. And community would come together. We'd do a service together. And that was great for the churches to build community. But when we can actually do it working together for an outreach project, for meeting needs of the community, then they're like, wow, wait a minute. Especially when we don't wear our church's shirt to those events.
We're repping Christ and not.
Then we all come together as one, and they can see that they ask which church, we're like, well, we go to this church, they go to that church. And there's about 5 churches involved here. They'll start to recognize that.
We're supporting the whole church and not just one organization or one company. It doesn't look as much like a business sometimes it just looks like a brand, I guess.
Yeah.
The whole
It can.
church, yeah.
Yep.
Man, that's good. Man, we appreciate having you. One thing we decided we wanted to start doing, it's kind of an exciting new segment. It's our, what's that? Go and Be Christ segment?
Yeah, Go and Be Christ.
That we want to just talk about, we're giving an opportunity to listeners or people to just email us in at our Gmail account to give us a story.
What's that
someone
account?
Being Christ.
Where would they email you at?
Yeah, the email is thewholechurchpodcast@gmail.com.
Gotcha.
Right.
Yeah.
Link in description.
Yeah, we'll drop that. We'll probably also close with it. But we all just kind of wanted to go through just one crazy Jesus moment we've had this week. So, Tiberius, did you want to start with that? Do you want me to start with that?
You start.
Okay. Yeah, this week I was at church Wednesday. The pastor was going over Revelation. Well, it wasn't the pastor, but the guy preaching was going over Revelation chapter 2. And it just kind of, one of those things, I guess, you already know something, but then it's revealed. I guess that's the correct term. He's just talking about all these different churches and different stuff they did good and also different stuff they did bad. And just kind of hit me up, man, even on my bad weeks, God just looks and goes, yeah, that was bad. You're still mine, though. Oh, man, that's crazy. I was talking about it in the car, even, we have people at work where they'll work, and if they had a really bad shift, I still, at the end of the shift, I'm like, man, yeah, that was awful. They made my job a lot harder, but she's still my girl, You're like, still my boy.
Yeah, I should have gone first. Mine's going to sound a lot worse, but mine's definitely more unorthodox, because just recently, I've decided to go back and play an old MMORPG that a lot of people around my age played when they were younger, called Wizard 101. Just because, that little nostalgia, it's easy, it's just something to waste time on. Just, I thought, why would a 19-year-old do this? So I didn't tell many people, but the way the game works is you're in a world with hundreds now, used to be millions, but of other people doing the same thing at the same time, and you can choose to team up with those people. And I've teamed up with 4 different people so far. Every single one of them has been in college. And it was just really, shocking to, no matter how odd you think your thoughts are, there's almost definitely someone else doing the same thing for the same reason. There's no reason to feel like, you're the weird one, what you're doing is bad. It's completely natural, and you're not alone. And I thought that was really a God moment.
It's cool. It's cool.
So,
for me, just thinking offhand, there was I was in a service on one night this week, and they were expecting and hoping for a lot of children. I was brought in to speak and teach a bunch of kids, and we had 5. And afterwards, they're like, "Man, I'm sorry. We were hoping for more and this and that." But it provided a great opportunity because there was a couple kids there that are used to going to church, and they do the church thing, and they know all about the church thing. But I was able to have a real conversation with them and just talk to them about real stuff and real struggles, and let them be open and discuss it. And you could see it. Initially, they're like, "Okay, great. What is this segment of the service? Oh, this is the life application." But when they saw that they could actually talk and be real and be a normal person that's struggling with stuff, I began to see something different in their countenance, their expression, their face changed, and they just kind of opened up. And for me, it was a great opportunity to think and look at that. Man, sometimes just doing things the way we've always done them and what people expect is good, but it doesn't always allow the opportunity for growth. And that's what these kids needed that night. A couple of them just needed someone just to talk to and listen that they didn't normally have access to.
Wow.
And so it was cool just to see them kind of wow, there's someone that,
It's crazy because recording at the campground with the camp ministry that we do with Church of God of Prophecy that's touched me in similar ways. I won't say hundreds of times, at least dozens, Dozens. I'll go with dozens. Also, that's been a lot of days here. But, yeah. So, to wrap it up, we had Jessica from Jacksonville send an email. And her story was she was at a Chick-fil-A, and the bottom of her milkshake just dropped out, and all of her milkshake fell onto the sidewalk.
No.
Then as she was going to her car, a gentleman ran up and gave her another milkshake. And she said she found out a week later that was a pastor of a local Baptist church there.
That's cool.
Ran up and gave her his milkshake.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So that's how you be Christ. Get some milkshakes to people.
That's God's food.
Yeah, man.
I like frosted coffees.
Sponsor us. I mean, yeah, me too.
Oh, awesome. Well, thank you all again for listening to the Whole Church Podcast. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
Support us on Patreon, please if you will. You can listen to us on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher.
Be sure to drop a comment on either of those.
Yeah. And
of course, you can email us your stories at Gmail. We want to hear more stories of people being Christ in our local communities. And we're going to soon have... Who are some guests coming up? I know another one of my mentors from the Charleston area, Dr. Keith Sharp, is going to be on.
right.
Is Dr. Peter Beck.
Local, some more people from our denomination, Christopher Galloway. Big pastor guy. He's in the room.
Yeah.
And Mandy.
We have a live audience this time.
Mandy McLaughlin.
Yeah.
That's right. And Francis Chan at the end of this season.
Yeah. He just doesn't know it.
I was gonna say, wow, dude, nailed it.
Yeah,
Man, you guys talk to me.
Oh, man.